Is that sound working okay? All right, good, because sitting up here didn't sound like it. I'm not sure. Thank you. Well, for those who came in the last 15 minutes, because I know it's daylight saving time, welcome, okay? And I congratulate you on getting here ahead of time. Uh, anyway, um, during this lead up to Christmas, we want to share with you. It's, we're on the way to Christmas. What's the matter with you guys? Christmas hadn't happened yet in 2017. But as we work our way towards Easter, thank you. You'll wait. Okay, thank you. What I would like to do is, and we are doing, is sharing with you probably the most phenomenal message ever given. And that was by Jesus, and it's called Sermon on the Mount. You just heard the Beatitudes. And as in every good message, hopefully, Jesus set the message up by talking about these be attitudes, what kind of attitude we should be in. And there are a number of them, but the one that I just pick out this morning is, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be the sons or children of God. But again, what he did is he set that up, and then he had a few statements throughout chapters 5 and 6 of Matthew and some of Luke, whereby he said, now here's what it takes to do that. So he didn't just say, here it is. He gave us some instructions. And I want to share some of those instructions this morning as we move along. You know, most of us have heard of Abraham Lincoln. Anybody who has not? Good. That's really good, okay? And Abraham Lincoln was a great president. He was a man of strength. He was a man of character. He was a man of humor. And he was a man who trusted those who didn't agree with him. He stepped up and he loved his enemies. And one of the things that he did was that he appointed a cabinet of people who were made up of individuals from the other political parties. A couple of them actually ran against him for president. And most of them didn't agree with him. That's what he brought into his cabinet. By the time it ended, all of them said, what a great man. What a great guy this is. What a great job he's doing. Because at the beginning they thought they knew the answers. But they found as he brought them all together and brought out what would be considered the truth of that moment in that day and time, that he did a great job of working with people and motivating even Congress back then. And one person asked him, though, said, Mr. President, why don't you fire Secretary of State William Seward? I mean, he is a political adversary. He is a pain in your side. He is a thorn. Why don't you get rid of him? And Abe Lincoln, as Abe Lincoln would do, said, let me share a story with you. He said, a few years ago I was passing a field, and there was a farmer trying to plow the field with a decrepit old horse. And that decrepit old horse, I don't know if he's going to get that field plowed or not. But I stopped and said hello to the farmer, and I noticed on the horse was a big horsefly. And so I started to brush it away. The farmer said, wait a minute, Abe, don't you touch that horsefly. Because without that horsefly, this horse would not get a field plowed, okay? And so all of us really do have horseflies in our lives. And they're there to help us get our field, if you would, plowed from a spiritual standpoint. H.G. Wells listed 6 of the greatest men who ever lived. And he said Jesus was at the top of the list. Not because H.G. Wells was a Christian, but because he believed that the Sermon on the Mount, or Jesus' doctrine of non-resistance and of non-violence, was the greatest truth ever uttered. If we lived this message of non-resistance, non-violence, I really believe that in time, and I believe it's going to happen, that it would put an end to all conflict between nations, both verbal and both wars. I think that it would actually non-polarize our Congress. I think it would create a time of peaceful coexistence between races and classes and cultures and people throughout the world. It's how strong a message it is. It's how beautiful a message it is. But what it really calls for is for us to change from the inside out. We have to change before that's going to take place, and we have to embrace this idea, if you would, of non-resistant, non-violence. Now, listen to me this morning as I talk about it, because sometimes we have fixed notion of what that means. You know, some people read the Beatitudes and said, what a bunch of wimps we would be if we acted that way. And that's not true. It would take a great deal of strength to act that way and be that way. But before I go into the passages, I think it's really important that we remember that we are created to grow and to learn, and we have the ability to change our minds based on the opportunities to present to us. Now, opportunities may not look like opportunities. They may look like challenges. But they are presented to us, every challenge, everything that happens in our lives, I really believe, is presented to us so that we can grow, so that we can change our minds, so we can see the world a little different and see ourselves, more importantly, different. You see, in order to find the truth, we must seek the truth. Somebody asked this morning in the Course in Miracles, what is a capital T truth? And I said, I don't know. That's not an answer a minister's supposed to give. But I'm not really sure, because I can't tell you what your truth is. I can tell you what I think the truth is. I've sat in meetings where two people had totally opposing ideas and both of them said Spirit was giving them the truth. Couldn't figure that out, okay? But basically, I think what we're talking about there is a truth that we know innately within ourselves, that we feel, that we experience, and when we feel that and we experience, we know it is the truth. Now, by definition, capital T truth is that which is eternal in nature, such as cause and effect. First cause, God. Something that does not change. Something we can depend on. The universal laws that we live in are statements of truth. But I think the most important thing is that we have to understand truth can change in a sense. Here's what I mean by that. When I was 20 years old, I knew who God was. And I could describe God perfectly at 20. A little different than I know God now. And so God has not changed. I have changed. As I changed my mind and I hope opened myself to what I saw God is and what I see God is today. When I first came into unity, I could explain God, but I've had a different experience over the last 17 or 18 years of knowing God. And so my definition today of God, which cannot be defined totally, but we have to try so we can understand what we're looking for and experience it, has changed. So God hasn't really changed. God is permanent. And I use that word in a large way, not just the definition that maybe we were taught as children. And my understanding, experience of God is totally different today than what it was when I was young, than what it was 15 years ago, and than what it was even 5 years ago. I experience it in a totally different way. So it's important that we not close our mind, but instead open our minds and hearts to grow in understanding and consciousness, and to evolve, not dissolve, to open, not close, and awaken to new ways in being and doing. We don't want to be like the person who said, and I have many friends who are Methodists, I'm a Methodist born and a Methodist bred. And when I die, I'll be a Methodist dead. Be careful and don't say, I'm a unity born and a unity bred, okay? And when I die, I'll be a unity dead. Maybe we have the best message out there. But I would guess that there are a lot of messages out there that are akin to ours and that we could grow if we listened to it, rather than fix our minds on, we got the only answer, because we don't. We have a good answer. So the first passage I want to talk about is found in Matthew 5:38, and it says, and you've heard these, and whoever would command you to go 1 mile, go the 2nd mile. It was about a decade before Jesus was born that the Roman law was put into effect, that anybody living in an occupied land, the people would have to help a Roman soldier out and carry their baggage for 1 mile at least. They couldn't carry it more than, they didn't have to carry it more than a mile, but they had to carry it a mile. And what historians say is that many people in the Jewish culture and people who lived in Jerusalem and throughout Israel, that what they would do is they would go to their front door and they would measure 1 mile to the right, put a mark, 1 mile to the left, and put a mark, and they didn't go a foot further when they were commanded to take it. And most of them didn't like it. Most of us would not like it. And here's Jesus saying to them, you know what? Go the second mile. And what does that mean? Go the second mile. Well, here are a few examples. To love one's neighbor is the first mile. To love one's enemy is the second mile. To bless those who bless you is the first mile. That's easy. To bless those who curse you is the second mile. To do good to those who do good to you and for you is the first mile. To do good to those who hate you is the second mile. To those that you may think are less than you are is the second mile. Pray for those who pray for you is the first mile, and praying for those who despitefully use you is the second mile. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth is the first mile. Restorative justice, if you would, is the second mile. Forgive those who forgive you is the first mile, and forgive yourselves and those who abuse you is going the second mile. What Jesus understood is that when we face those circumstances, that until we're ready to go the second mile, that we just stay in our position of feeling like we're victimized, feeling like we're being taken advantage of, feeling like that this is wrong and I'm being treated wrongly and I don't like it and I don't like you for doing it. What Jesus was really saying was go the second mile. And it would help you move through the first mile in a different way. Jesus was saying respond as a spiritual being, not a human being. Step into your spirituality. You see, when we are confronted with situations or individuals who force us to walk the first mile, we must respond with a different energy, a different consciousness, as well as see the Christ in each situation and in each person. Boy, that's a hard one. Somebody is giving you a hard time at work. Really a hard time. And Richard, you're saying I'm supposed to see the Christ in that person? I thought I was just supposed to fight for my rights as an employee. And I'm not suggesting anything wrong with that. Fighting is not a good idea, but work for your rights is different. And so this different consciousness, you see, is when we see the Christ in each situation and each person. And therefore what we see are that the horsefly on the flank of that horse, or your flank, is the key to opening you up as a spiritual being and going the second mile. The horsefly is nipping at you, causing you to see something differently, causing you to experience something differently, causing you to change your mind about the way things be, causing you to be able to respond rather than react. The second thing that Jesus said to his followers on that mountain is a number of things, but this was the second one I picked out. Resist not him who is evil, but whosoever slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. I think this may be one of the most misquoted, or misunderstood, not misquoted, statements that Jesus made. People go, are you kidding me? Now I'm going to turn my, okay, I'll turn my cheek. Well, boom, 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 boom. And after a while, I get a little dizzy if I'm not careful. And that's not what Jesus was talking about. In all societies, if you slap a person with the back of your hand, that is the ultimate insult. And they used to duel over it, we know that. They used to fight about it, and they still do. So Jesus was saying if somebody slaps you, smites you, in any kind of way, whether it be the way they treat you, whether it be the way you might think they're cheating you, whether it be a way in which you feel like the relationship is their fault, whatever those circumstances are, then we have to be able to turn the other cheek. Now, the other cheek is turning to the divinity within us. That makes sense? That we have to turn to the divinity within us. And when we do that, we then can resolve and respond to the circumstance or the situation. We can respond to that coworker who is our horsefly. We can respond to that ex in our life who was the horsefly as far as we're concerned. We can respond to those we disagree with love and understanding as we step into that divinity that we truly are. That's what Jesus was always talking about. Become who you are, he said. And what he was saying is become the divinity that you are, become the faith that you are, become the understanding that you are, become the spiritual being that you are. That's how we go, if you would, that second mile. That's how we turn the other cheek. Eric Butterworth said that Jesus has made the greatest discovery of the divinity within humankind and is sharing that with us if we would listen. He is always trying to help us realize there is always a depth of strength within us during our times of weakness. It takes phenomenal strength to receive a slap in some form or fashion and then to turn our cheek and behold the Christ in the other person. And we can't do that until we behold the Christ within ourselves. And we all have that strength and that capacity and that ability to do it because we're spiritual beings. We're not human beings. And everything that happens in your life is sacred. Everything. And sometimes that doesn't sound too good because we think of the sacred as feeling good and, kind of flowing and everything's calm and everybody's beautiful and everything's great. Kind of a green mentality. Nothing wrong with that. But that's what they call it, the green mentality. And so we see everybody as love and understanding, but until they slap us upside the head. And then we change our opinion. And we've got to, then of all times, step into that strength within ourselves and behold the Christ in that other person. And we're able to do that because, you see, we understand how life works. When people in life seem to turn against us, when we are expressing a health challenge, when work is overwhelming, when we are embroiled in a relationship challenge, we can respond one of two ways. We can resist and think or even say, woe is me, or we can embrace the challenge with non-resistance and non-violence, which in its core value is love, wisdom, and thoughtfulness. Now, I want to bring this down to the personal level. I'm not talking about going out, although we can do that, and demonstrating. If we do, it should be non-violence and be for something. But I'm talking about we personally have to be non-violent in our thoughts and our hearts. So that when we approach the other person, when we work with the other person, when that coworker who's been that pain, when we approach them with love and understanding, and we behold all the strength. When we say we Christ with them, we're beholding the strength within that person. We're beholding the potential within that person. We're seeing them as unlimited in their ability to change because we see it within ourselves. And when we do that, we're able to help make a change in our lives. And that which is a challenge becomes an opportunity. So we do have that ability to go to the heart space in the midst of a personal crisis and go into a Christ moment. When we have a holy encounter in which we respond by turning the other cheek, and when we turn the other cheek, we are standing in the Jesus Christ consciousness, which is what Jesus was teaching us. And this is a consciousness, again, of non-resistance and non-violence. So remember that when you turn your cheek to a coworker, you turn your cheek to a friend, you turn your cheek to a financial challenge, you turn your cheek to the world, you will experience the Christ within you as you. As you. Then you will find yourself going the first mile in life with confidence and allowing the second mile to be a journey of oneness with whomever you journey with in life. Remember that horsefly in Abe Lincoln's story? Let the horseflies in your life bring out the Christ in you. Thank you.